So we are back on Reddit because that is where I find all of my content since EA decided to stop updates for Unbound and Need for Speed in general. The topic of today's video is, should the next Need for Speed and those going forward be based off a specific time period, or should they continue to be based on the locations? Now, in my opinion, Need for Speed has almost always been about locations, either fictional or somewhat inspired by what is in the real world rather than a specific time period. This idea may sound good on paper and could perhaps in theory give players a fresh new experience, but what I think the dude who made this post is not thinking about are a few things. One, if you make a game that takes place in modern society, then you can literally use anything that came before it. The second one is car companies tend to want to promote their newer stuff and recent stuff, so they are more eager to make brand deals and have license agreements with EA if their cars are newer. And three, who would actually want to play a game like that? I'm telling y'all, you need to be extremely careful with what you ask for, because sure, you may think it's a great idea until you get the game in front of you and realize that you have been accustomed to the new stuff and that is exactly what you actually like. If they go full throttle with something like this, then depending on the time period, we could be driving cars with no real tuning capabilities, no NOS, just bare bones stock cars with maybe whatever performance upgrades they had at that time. Now, if what this guy is really asking for is a new game that just look like it takes place in the early days, then I mean, sure, that's better than having the game be purely old car focused like what they did in Crew Motorfest, but I just don't think it would be as popular as people may think it would be. But before we go deeper, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to go ahead and drop a like and subscribe. I'm finally back from my vacation. It was a month long and I have some free time now, so the videos will be ramping back up. Also, Facecam and fit checks will be coming back in the next video. I did read the comments requesting it back. I have heard y'all. I'm telling y'all don't want to miss it. Make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe. Anyway, let's talk about the biggest point first. I think that it would be fair to say that a huge part of the appeal of Need for Speed is being able to drive all types of cars from older BMWs to new Ferraris. Even though a lot of people do not like the car list in Need for Speed Unbound, you got cars from the 1900s all the way up to the brand new Dark Horse, which just came out very recently. There is a part of the community that loves the older cars and would 100% buy a game that only has those cars in it. In fact, if you go through the Reddit, you'll hear people complain up and down about how they miss the old varieties of cars and feel like Need for Speed is being taken over by the new stuff. And don't get me wrong, it's fine for y'all to feel like that. But unfortunately, the size of the community that wants new stuff is way bigger than y'all. People lost their minds when the Dark Horse dropped. It had the community going crazy. Same when all these other new cars dropped throughout the game's life cycle. Game as in Need for Speed Unbound. Regardless if they were the most hype brands or not, people still were excited to try them out. Now imagine if they just dropped cars around the 1950s, maybe a Buick or a Ford, right? That is not nearly as hype. Plus, it's not like the game doesn't show love to older cars anyway. The DeLorean dropped and that car came out in 1981. Plus, if you go through the list, you can find plenty of older car models. One of the best cars in the game, the Ferrari Testarossa, came out in 1984. Just because a game takes place in the modern age doesn't mean that the older cars are going to go away. But if you only have a game take place in a certain time period, then you are locked to those years and that's it. What would a game look like if it was advertised that it took place in one era and then they dropped a brand new Corvette ZR1X? That wouldn't make any sense, right? The reason why there aren't as many older cars as there are newer cars is because the popularity for them is just not as high and probably costs more to license, which goes into my next point. Licensing. We all love to talk about how companies make money by allowing EA to put their cars in the game. But instead of breaking it down like how we did before in a previous video, we are more so talking about what companies care about, and that is money and advertising. If it wasn't clear, automakers use games as a main source of advertising. They want players to see and drive the newest cars, which may influence real-world sales. Is that probable? Probably not, because a lot of the people that play the games are younger, but it does influence them in other ways. But because older models are no longer in production, there's little business incentive to promote them, so why even go into discussions about them, right? Businesses are in the business, no pun intended, of making money. If it doesn't serve a clear marketing goal, it may not feel worth it. From the company's perspective, licensing an old car costs time and money, which includes negotiations, approvals, asset sharing, all that sort of stuff that it doesn't randomly get completed. Plus, you got to keep in mind that Need for Speed is an illegal street racing arcade racer, and some companies may not want that image on an older car that was maybe a prize to have back then. I'm not saying that this is 100% the case, but it does make sense if you look at it. Some manufacturers don't want their classic cars being shown in illegal street racing either, being bashed throughout the race or being chased down by law enforcement. Reputation is a big thing for car brands, especially overseas like Ferrari and Bugatti, but everybody knows about Ferrari and how anal they can be. Some companies may not want their classic cars shown being wrecked, heavily modified, or pushed beyond realistic performance. If a 1970s muscle car is keeping up with the Bugatti, in-game, that could feel disrespectful to the brand's heritage. Now, yes, I get that both of these options can be used in a variety of Need for Speed games together, but things can change. Now on to the third point, which was who would actually want to play this. Let's be realistic, y'all. We gotta be realistic here, guys. People play Need for Speed in the first place because they want access to a huge mix of cars. Hypercars, JDMs, muscle cars, tuners, and yes, even the classic cars. Need for Speed is meant to reflect current car culture, which is underground racing, tuning, drifting, and exotics. If you were to make a game that intentionally locks everything to a single decade and forces players into a much smaller pool of vehicles, that's not going to end well. That instantly makes the game feel less exciting and less replayable. To go into it even further, what else is Need for Speed known for? Customization. However, if the game is time locked, then customization options would either be historically accurate, which you may think is cool until you realize how limiting that actually is, or the customization would be very, very unrealistic, which at that point you might as well either not have put it in the game or just added the new cars that actually fit the aesthetic of the customization options. Younger players in particular want to drive the cars they see on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, not just cars that their parents or grandparents grew up with. And low-key, if a game comes out and the game doesn't feature any of the cars people scroll past on social media or know about from social media, then the game already feels out to date to them. Social media is packed with Mustangs, Supras, Lambos, and definitely those M cars that you see on every other TikToker's post. And that drives what people dream about owning in games. They don't just want to drive these cars stock. They want to recreate what they see on TikTok, what the influencers build. They want the wide body kits, the exhaust, and the wraps that they scroll past every day. Think about what you see when you go to Unbound's wrap page. Every other wrap is based off a new car that came out, or a wrap that is on a car in real life that somebody has seen on social media or on the internet. That kind of fantasy is what keeps Need for Speed feeling relevant and modern. And remember, that is who EA is trying to cater to in the first place, the younger audience. People that love older cars and older car history might love a retro-focused Need for Speed, but the majority of the fan base wants a flashy, high-speed, modern arcade racer. The last point is something I thought of while making the script, and that is the variety in the worlds. You can't have a game be in a certain time period and also have skyscrapers and new buildings everywhere, right? That wouldn't make sense. One of the strengths of pretty much every single Need for Speed game is the variety in their worlds. You can speed down the highways, cut through the city streets, drift through the forest areas and the mountains if they have it, or just cruise anywhere. That mix of environments gives people the excitement to do with what they please and continue to play the game in general. But if a game is locked into a specific time period, that freedom is probably not going to be there, or it won't feel as fresh and authentic. Making a game follow a certain area risks making the map feel extremely repetitive and probably very limited, since developers would have to keep it authentic 100% of the time. I don't think it would be wrong for me to say that it would feel like a downgrade to have something like that come out in a brand new Need for Speed game, especially since we're used to all this new stuff that we've gotten over the years. But let me know how you guys feel about this in the comment section below. Once again, I was on a month-long vacation, so that's why I haven't responded to the comments on the recent video. That video and the one before it were on a timer, that way I would not have to focus on uploading or anything YouTube when I was on vacation. But we are back to our regularly scheduled programming now, So everything is coming back. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to go ahead and drop a like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.